At the start of the story, Saito was looking towards Akane. Just then, Akane grabs Saito's collar and says, "No one in class should find out about us." After this, Saito thinks, "I am married to Akane. I hate Akane so much in this school." In a scene from 4 days ago, Akane was scolding Saito a lot because he had written something in his notebook. Akane made an excuse to scold Saito. Saito says, "If you focus on your studies, you will become a good student." Akane says, "I am trying to improve you." Then Himani arrives and says to Akane, "You should give Saito a break or he will start crying." Akane explains, "Whenever I see Saito, I get really angry at him." Just then, Shisei arrives and says, "Are you two fighting again?" Shisei is quite popular and cute. Saito and Shisei are cousin brother and sister. Himani says, "You trouble Saito a lot. Do you perhaps like him?" Akane says, "Even if Saito were the last person in the world, I would not like him." Saito also says, "Even if you were the last girl in the world, I would not like you." While returning from school, Saito receives a call from his grandpa. He says, "Would you like to have tea with me?" Saito says, "I want to spend time with my books." Grandpa says, "You can read books anytime. I am going to make you the owner of my company in the future." Suddenly, a lot of bodyguards arrive near Saito. Saito says to his grandpa, "Are you planning to kidnap me?" Grandpa says, "Get in the car." Saito praises his grandpa a lot, thinking about how he became rich. Saito's family is quite rich. Saito was reading a book in one place. Akane also arrives there and, surprised, says, "What are you even doing here?" Saito says, "My grandpa called me." Akane also says, "I was about to have a great lunch with my grandma here, but after seeing your face, my mood got ruined." In the next scene, Grandpa and Grandma arrive and say, "It was nice meeting you." Both of them are quite surprised. Everyone sits inside and starts drinking. Saito begins mocking Akane. A debate starts again between them. Seeing this, Grandpa and Grandma start laughing and say, "It looks like you both are very close." Saito and Akane ask, "Why did you call us here?" Grandpa and Grandma say, "For your marriage." Hearing this, both Saito and Akane become very nervous, and they think, "We are still in high school. How can we get married now?" Grandpa and Grandma insist a lot, but Akane refuses and says, "I am still too young." Saito was also agreeing with Akane. Saito says, "You cannot arrange our marriage without our permission." Grandpa brings a dog and says, "If you do not agree to my words, I will make the dog the owner of the company." Grandma calls Akane and whispers something in her ear, which makes Akane very nervous. Grandpa says, "You have to say yes or no. I am giving you 3 days to decide." In the next scene, Akane is at home, thinking about Saito and feeling very troubled. Akane was talking to Himani on a call and says to Himani, "How can I marry a guy I do not even like?" In the next day's scene, Saito goes to talk to Akane, but Akane ignores him. Now 3 days pass, and it is time to give an answer about whether they will get married or not. Grandpa says, "Have you made your decision? What do you want to do?" Saito and Akane say together, "We will get married." Hearing this, Grandpa and Grandma become very happy. Saito starts saying, "As soon as I finish high school, I will get married and also start managing the company." But Grandpa says, "Your wedding is about to happen." Hearing this, Saito and Akane become worried. Grandpa shows them their new house and says, "You both are going to live here." Grandpa and Grandma say, "You both cannot go outside. You have to stay here." And then they leave. Both of them eventually have to enter the house. After coming inside, Saito locks the door. Akane, feeling nervous, says, "Why did you lock the door?" Saito says, "Isn't this normal?" Everyone locks the door. After this, their belongings also arrive there. Akane really likes the house. She explores the entire place. Akane gets nervous when she finds out that there is only one bed. Both of them had to sleep on the same bed. Hearing this, Saito is also shocked. He calls Grandpa. Grandpa says, "You both are a couple, so you will sleep on the same bed." Hearing this, both of them are surprised, and Akane, panicking, says, "Are you going to do all that with me too?" Saito does not understand anything. Akane, shouting, says, "I will not let you come near me." Akane says, "I know what goes on in boys' minds. Don't even try to touch me." Saito calms her down and says, "I am not going to do anything with you." After this, Akane was going to put away her belongings. She slips on the stairs, but Saito catches her. Saito says, "Do your work properly, because if you die on the first day, people will think I am a murderer." Sometime later, Saito is eating pizza, and Akane starts craving it and begins crying. Saito gives her a slice, and Akane takes it and leaves. In the next scene, at night, both of them come to sleep, and they are feeling very awkward. Then Saito asks, "Why did you agree to marry me?" Akane refuses to tell. Saito's hand accidentally touches Akane's body. Akane gets very angry and twists Saito's hand. Akane says, "What were you trying to do?" A fight begins between them. Then, in the present scene, Akane is shouting at Saito, "You will not tell anyone about us. You will not stay with me. Do not try to talk to me." Saito says, "I know about all these things." Both of them promise, "We will not tell anyone." Akane and Saito enter the classroom. Saito sits at his seat. Shisei walks up to Saito and says, "Bro, you smell different today." Hearing this, Saito gets nervous and replies, "Dad bought a new shampoo. That's probably why." Shisei says, "No, this smells like a girl. I know you got married, and I even know where your new house is." In the next scene, Akane is yelling at Saito. Akane shouts, "You piled up all the gym equipment. Someone's gonna trip and get hurt." Later at home, Akane calls out to Saito. Akane says, "Why did you buy so much juice?" Saito explains, "This is vegetable juice and it's really healthy." Then Saito shows Akane a bunch of instant noodles, and Akane looks shocked. Saito says, "It's great for meals and super quick to make." Akane, annoyed, says, "And where exactly are you going to get your protein from?" Saito then pulls out a protein powder, mixes it with vegetable juice in a shaker, and hands it to Akane. Akane frowns and says, "Who the hell is supposed to drink this?" She then decides to cook instead. Putting on a cute dress, she starts preparing a meal, thinking, "Once Saito eats this, he'll see my talent." Saito glances at her and says, "Akane, don't smile so creepily." He wonders, is she putting something weird in my food? Finally, the food is ready. Akane tells Saito, "Try it. You'll love it." Later, Saito is sleeping when Akane comes to wake him up. Half asleep, Saito grabs Akane's hand and pulls her onto the bed next to him. Akane, blushing, gets flustered and scolds him. Saito quickly apologizes. Later, Akane points at the dishes and says, "It was your turn to wash them." Saito shrugs. "Let's just use the clean dishes we have left. I'll wash them when we run out." Akane gets even angrier because Saito also used up the toilet paper and shampoo. Saito says, Yeah, we'll buy more." In the next scene, Saito is playing a zombie game. Akane sees it and gets scared. Akane says, "Why are you wasting time on this?" Saito replies, "It's a super popular zombie action game." Akane says, "Just turn it off." Saito argues, "But I still have 40% left to complete." The doorbell suddenly rings. Akane goes to open the door, accidentally unplugging the TV, and Saito's game shuts off. Later, Saito is about to take a bath. As he opens the bathroom door, he suddenly realizes Akane is inside. Noticing that Akane isn't moving, Saito steps in and realizes she's asleep in the tub. Saito tries to wake her up, but she doesn't respond. He lifts her to carry her out, but she ends up falling on top of him. Akane wakes up and, realizing the situation, freaks out. She's naked. She screams, "I don't feel safe with you at all!" Saito leaves the bathroom, embarrassed. Akane, still emotional, says, "Saito, did you see everything?" Saito panics. No, I didn't." Akane, still drowsy, hesitates to leave, feeling embarrassed. But soon, she realizes Saito was actually trying to help her. She quietly goes to her room. The next day at school, Himani approaches Akane, and Akane immediately hugs her. Akane tells Himani, "If I keep fighting with Saito, I'm going to lose my mind." Himani advises her, "You need to talk to Saito properly and show him some respect." Meanwhile, Saito tells Shisei, "Living at home is tough." Shisei says, "You should treat Akane better. Have you ever tried to understand her feelings? Have you ever tried to accept her?" Saito realizes something and says, "You're right." Back home, Saito sneaks in quietly, but Akane grabs him. Akane says, "Saito, talk to me." Akane continues, "I want to discuss how we can fix things between us." They sit down to talk. Akane says, "We have to live together. I don't want to keep fighting." Saito nods. "You're right. We should set some rules so we can live peacefully." Akane sighs, "I do all the work alone." Saito responds, "All right, I'll help." Akane is surprised by his response. Their conversation flows smoothly. Saito tells Akane, "You should sleep properly. When our bodies accidentally touch, you misunderstand." Akane, flustered, mumbles, "You can touch me, but only over my clothes." She also forbids Saito from playing zombie games. Saito says, "If we start saying thank you and sorry more often, our relationship will improve." Later, in her room, Akane tells Himani, "I did exactly what you suggested." Saito walks in. Akane, flustered, jumps onto the bed and nervously says, "You can touch me now." Saito thinks, "She's such an idiot. I was talking about accidental touches." In the next scene, Saito buys Akane her favorite cake. She gets really happy that he brought her a gift. Akane, in return, makes Saito a nice dinner. Akane tells him, "Try it and tell me how it is." Saito takes a bite and actually likes it. Akane, smiling, says, "I'm glad to hear that." Later, Saito washes the dishes. Akane comes over to help, and the two of them clean up together. Saito is flipping through a book when Akane walks up to him and says, "Can we watch a movie together? This movie is 3 hours long." Saito agrees to watch the movie. Akane is enjoying the movie, but Saito falls asleep. The movie is way too boring. After the movie ends, Akane says to Saito, "Now, I will watch your favorite movie with you." Saito says, "I am going to play a game." 20 minutes later, Saito is losing the game while Akane is winning. Saito is really happy and thinks, "I didn't expect to enjoy spending time with Akane this much." As they are lying down, Akane suddenly says to Saito, "Call me by my name from now on." Saito says her name. Both of them blush. In the next scene, Akane picks up Saito's eraser in class and hands it to him. Shisei asks Saito, "How are things going between you and Akane?" Saito says, "We have started talking properly." Saito calls Akane and asks, "What are you going to do after school?" Akane says, "Go home and study." Saito says, "Why don't we go shopping instead?" Akane raises an eyebrow. "Wait, are you asking me on a date?" Saito says, "We are going shopping, not on a date." Akane smiles. That actually sounds like a great idea. In the next scene, Akane is waiting for Saito. When he arrives, they start walking together. Saito asks, "So, where are we going?" Akane says, "There is a store near my house. Let's go there." Akane checks the prices while shopping, choosing only good quality items. In the next scene, Akane and Saito are walking home, talking. Saito suddenly says, "You would make a great wife." Akane blushes and playfully says, "I am already your wife." That night, as they are sleeping, Akane suddenly wakes up and sees Saito trying to touch her. Akane yells, "What the hell are you doing?" Saito flinches and quickly says, You looked really cute. I just wanted to touch your cheeks." Next morning, Saito is washing his face when he hears Akane screaming. When he checks, he sees that Akane has completely burned her breakfast. Akane is hungry, so Saito brings her some buns, and they share them. A few days later, Akane has an upcoming quiz, so she stays up late studying. Later that night, Saito makes dinner for her. She prepares sandwiches. Akane takes a bite and says, "This is really good. Now I can keep studying." Himari says to Akane, "You have not slept at all. You should take care of your health too." In the next scene, Saito brings dinner to Akane's room, but notices she has a high fever. Saito checks her temperature. It is really high. He grabs a damp cloth and tries to cool her down, but Akane weakly pushes his hand away, saying, "I need to study. I have to chase my dream." She looks at Saito and says, "I want to become a doctor. I want to help people." Akane then reveals, "My family cannot afford my medical school fees, but my grandma promised me, if I marry you, they will pay for my tuition." Over time, Akane's health keeps getting worse. Saito thinks about calling an ambulance, but Akane stops him. She whispers, "If I sleep, I will be fine." Saito suddenly lifts her into his arms. Akane gasps, What are you doing?" Saito firmly says, "I am your husband. Just trust me and stay quiet." Akane turns bright red. Saito continues, "I will help you achieve your dreams. I believe in us. We will have a happy ending." In the next scene, Saito is sleeping when Akane wakes him up. "I made fried eggs for you." Saito wakes up, realizing Akane's fever has gone down. As he starts eating, he teases her. "When you had a fever, you kept asking me to stay by your side." Akane's face turns red. "Well, what? You recorded that?" In the next scene, Himari is talking to Saito when Akane suddenly storms in. She glares at Saito and says, "We are already married. Why are you getting so close to other girls?" Akane gives Saito a lunchbox. Saito says, "I forgot, but I really liked that you made lunch for me." Akane responds, "I worked really hard on this. I hope you like it." At lunchtime, Shisei turns to Saito and says, "I'm really hungry. Give me your lunch." Saito replies, "You should have brought your own lunch. I'm not giving you mine." Just then, Himari arrives and says, "Akane and Saito's lunchboxes look the same." Shisei eats Saito's lunch. Saito exclaims, "How could you just eat it?" Shisei shrugs and says, "I was hungry." Himari asks Saito, "Did Akane make your lunch?" Saito responds, "We both just bought the same frozen food." Later, that night at home, Akane hears a strange noise. She sees a shadow-like figure. Terrified, she screams. Saito wakes up and asks, "What happened?" Akane shakily points, There's a ghost over there." Saito looks and says, "There's nothing there." Akane, on the verge of tears, pleads, "Please, don't go back to sleep. Don't leave me alone. I'm really scared." Saito groans, "Stop bothering me. Just let me sleep." In the next scene, Saito is studying in his room. Akane, still scared, enters and says, "I keep hearing footsteps in the living room. I swear there's a ghost." Saito sighs and says, "What are you even doing here?" Akane declares, "I'm keeping an eye on you, just in case the ghost attacks." Saito replies, "You don't need to worry about me. Now go back to your room." Akane stubbornly says, "No way! This is my room too." Saito gives up and leaves the room. He moves to a different one. After some time, Akane comes back and tells Saito, "I'm going to take a bath." Akane looks nervous and says, "Can you come with me? Just wait outside, don't come in." Saito sighs but follows her. Akane calls out from inside, "You're still there, right?" Saito stays silent. Akane opens the door and steps out, without any clothes on. Saito immediately looks away and says, "At least wrap yourself in a towel before coming out." Next day at school, Saito complains to Shisei, "Akane's been driving me crazy these past few days." Shisei asks, "What's up with her?" Saito explains, "Lately, she keeps seeing ghosts, and it's been really annoying." Shisei smirks and says, "What if it's a real ghost? I'll check it out." Later, at Saito's house, they go to his study room. Shisei picks up Saito's shirt and sniffs it. Akane tells her, "Last night, I saw the shadow of a little child while I was sleeping." Shisei thinks for a moment and then confidently says, "I figured out who the ghost is." Akane and Saito ask, "Who?" Shisei grins. "Me," Shisei explains. "Akane told me where she saw the ghost. A few days ago, I snuck into your house through that exact spot. I was just checking on you guys." Akane sighs in relief. So there was no ghost after all. Shisei adds, "Your grandpa told me to check how your relationship was going, so I came to spy." Shisei suddenly changes the topic. "I'm starving. Let's eat." Akane smiles. "I'll make you something good." In the next scene, at the table, there's a huge feast. Shisei takes a bite and says, "This is really good." Akane cheerfully says, "Let me know if you need anything else." Meanwhile, Saito and Shisei are playing a game. Shisei keeps getting way too close to Saito. Akane crosses her arms and says, "You two are getting a little too close." Later that night, Saito is sleeping when Akane sneaks into bed beside him. Akane pouts and says, "You bought a new video game and didn't tell me? You played with Shisei first when I wanted to play with you." Suddenly, Saito touches Akane's body. Akane screams, but then Saito suddenly feels someone touching him too. He turns to Akane, "Why are you touching me?" But then they both realize it's Shisei touching both of them. In the end, all three of them just fall asleep there. Himari and Akane are in a cafe. Himari tells Akane, "I like Saito." Akane, surprised, says, "That idiot Saito? How did you even start liking him?" Himari smiles and says, "He looks pretty smart to me. He helps people, and he's really trustworthy." Akane suddenly remembers how Saito carried her in his arms and took her to the hospital. Himari continues, "You're close to Saito. Help me make him develop feelings for me." Akane sighs and says, "Fine, what do I have to do?" Himari says, "You just need to give me all the information about Saito." In the next scene, Akane starts taking notes about Saito. When he's eating, she secretly records a video of him. Saito notices and asks, "Why the hell are you doing this?" Akane quickly responds, "Oh, no reason, just for fun." She then asks, "What kind of girls do you like?" Saito shrugs. "I've never really thought about it." Akane writes it down in her notebook and asks again, "What kind of food do you like?" Saito thinks for a moment. "I used to eat a lot of luxury food with my grandpa." Later, Akane gives all the details to Himari. Saito likes rare meat. His hobbies are reading books and playing games, especially zombie games. Himari gets excited hearing all this. "Thank you, Akane." At home, Akane tells Saito, "Clean up the bed while I make dinner." Saito asks, "What are you making?" Akane smiles. "Fish. Don't worry, I'll make it perfectly." Finally, Akane finishes cooking and proudly tells Saito, "Taste it. I'm sure it's good." Saito takes a bite and nods. "This is really good. I want you to make this for me every day." Akane, overjoyed, moves in close to Saito, almost touching him. Saito looks at her and says, "You're too close." Akane realizes and quickly steps back, blushing. Later, Saito is playing games in his room, while Akane sneaks in, looking for more information about him. Saito suddenly enters, and Akane panics. She quickly makes up an excuse. "I was just looking for some books. I wanted something interesting to read." Saito hands her a book. "Here, try this. It's a history book, but it's surprisingly fun." Akane takes the books and gives them to Himari. The next day, Himari approaches Saito, asking for help with the books. Akane secretly watches from afar, feeling uneasy. Saito agrees to help Himari. Shisei notices and tells Akane. Himari has liked Saito since her first year. After school, Himari excitedly tells Akane everything. Akane says, "I'll find more information for you." Himari smiles. "Let's hang out today. I'll buy something nice and visit your house." Akane immediately refuses. I can't. Saito is at home." Himari has no idea that Akane and Saito are actually husband and wife. Seeing Himari getting emotional, Akane sighs and finally agrees. agrees. At home, Akane warns Saito, Himari is coming over today. I'll throw all your stuff in the closet and you better hide too. When Himari arrives, she suddenly asks Akane, do you like Saito? If you do, I'll back off. Without thinking, Akane blurts out, I don't like Saito at all. Saito hears everything. He looks hurt. The next day at school, Himari asks Saito out on a date. Saito shakes his head. Sorry, I don't really like you that way. Himari looks disappointed. Saito adds, but I appreciate that you asked me directly. Akane overhears everything. Shisei approaches her. I figured it out. You like Saito, don't you? Akane sighs. I just want Himari to be happy. That's all. That night at home, Saito tells Akane, Himari asked me out on a date today. Akane forces a smile. That's great. A pretty girl is asking you out. Saito looks at her. Should I go? Akane turns away. Why are you asking me? Saito answers seriously, because you're my wife. Akane sighs. Go ahead and like whoever you want. The next day, as Saito is about to leave for the date, Akane hesitates. She finally asks, Are you really going? Saito smirks. If you stop me, I won't go. Akane clenches her fists, but forces a smile. Go, have fun. Just as Saito turns to leave, Akane suddenly grabs his wrist, holding on tightly. She looks down and whispers, Please, don't go. I don't want you to go. Saito freezes, shocked. Akane looks up at him, tears in her eyes. You're my husband. I can't stand seeing you with someone else. Saito gently places a hand on her head and smiles. Don't worry. I already rejected her. I knew you didn't hate me. Akane stares at him, speechless. Saito smirks. Let's go shopping instead. Oh, and I'm getting you a ring. In the next scene, Himari feeds Saito raw meat and says, I know you really like this. Saito, surprised, asks, Who told you that? Himari smiles and says, I made it with a lot of love. Please eat it. When Saito eats it, he really enjoys it, making Himari happy. However, Akane does not like any of this. In the next scene, Himari asks Saito for help with math. Saito agrees, and Himari is delighted. Himari says to Saito, We'll study in the library after school. Akane is clearly unhappy about this. Akane says, Studying alone can be dangerous. Shisei adds, I'll help Himari study too. They all decide to study at Akane's house. In the next scene, Akane throws away all of Saito's belongings from her house. Himari struggles with math, so both Saito and Akane help her understand. Himari tells Saito, You're really good at teaching. Hearing this, Akane doesn't look pleased. In the next scene, everyone is playing a card game. Akane says to Saito, I'm going to beat you. However, Saito wins, and all three of them lose badly. Saito says, You guys keep playing. I'll go grab something to eat. Akane follows Saito to help him. Akane says to Saito, You seem a little down. Saito explains, In my family, we're afraid of losing. I've never lost before. Later, as they prepare to leave, the power suddenly goes out. Akane panics and hugs Saito tightly. Saito says, Let go of me. Akane, still holding on tightly, refuses to let go. Akane says, I'm scared of the dark. Please don't leave me. They start having a heartfelt conversation, and the atmosphere becomes romantic. Both Akane and Saito feel shy. Just then, the lights come back on, and Himari walks in. She sees Akane and Saito standing very close together. The next day at school, Himari tells Saito, I didn't understand anything the teacher explained. Can you teach me? Saito agrees. Akane quietly says to Saito, Teach me at home too. Later, Saito helps Akane study at home, and she quickly understands the concepts. Saito says, You learned that really fast. Akane responds, I want to become a doctor, that's why. Saito says, I want to know everything about you. Akane, surprised, asks, Why? Saito replies, No reason. Akane shares, I had a younger sister who was sick. My parents took care of her, and I also looked after her, but we couldn't save her. That's why I want to become a doctor, to help others. The next day, Saito tells everything to his sister, Shisei, and wonders how I can cheer Akane up. Shisei suggests, Go hang out with Akane. Take her somewhere fun. Saito goes to home and says, Let's go out next week. I really want to spend time with you. Akane becomes nervous. Later, Akane tells her grandmother, Saito wants to hang out with me. I think he's asking me on a date. Her grandmother, excited, takes her to the dressing room and says, Try on whatever you like. In the next scene, Akane looks stunning. Saito also thinks she looks beautiful. Finally, they go out, and Akane spots a cat shop. Saito says, We'll come here another time. They then go to a club. Akane, blushing, says, You're not planning to kiss me, are you? People usually do that in places like this. Saito responds, Are you crazy? Then, they sing together. And afterward, Akane feels really happy. They then go to a park and drink juice. Akane asks Saito, Why did you plan this outing today? Saito says, You were upset because of me, so I had to fix it. Akane thanks Saito and says, Wherever you take me, I'll go. Saito takes Akane to a medical store and buys vitamin D supplements, then eats several of them. After that, he starts eating calcium tablets, saying, "Bones need to be strong." Later, while at home, Akane sees a ring and really likes it. Saito asks, "Do you want it?" Akane declines. Saito says, "If you want it, we can buy it." Akane replies, "I'll buy it myself once I become a doctor." She thanks Saito, and they head home together.